Welcome to the Joypunk podcast. I'm your host, Jenelle Etzel. My guest today is Trevor Graves, arguably one of the most famous action sports photographers. His iconic photos capture the early days of the snowboard scene as it exploded into one of the most popular sports in the world. He eventually turned his passion into the founding of Nemo, a Portland-based brand design agency providing modern marketing for the world's leading sports, technology, and lifestyle brands. Their clients include Converse, Rossignol, Nike, Oakley, Mastercraft, Skull Candy, and Red Bull. Trevor sits on the board of the White East Academy, mentors many entrepreneurs, and is my super brother from another mother. Trevor, thanks for coming and joining me on the podcast today.
Boy, thanks for bringing me in. I'm excited to make your list.
You're on top of my list. You know that. I know you really well. And I know you have just this incredible journey that you've been on to achieve the success that you have today. And one of my favorite stories of yours is that as a kid, you were working in a photo shop in like a development hut that we used to have around. My family used to own Kodak development huts, so I totally know what that's all about. And it was there that you had a mentor that really changed your life. Can you take us back to those early days of photo booth Trevor Graves?
Photo booth Trevor Graves. So we'll set the scene. So I think what you're talking about is when I was in Albany, New York, working at we'll call it a graphics design place, was called Corporate Graphics, but it was the in-house agency for General Electrics. My job was processing E6 film. Cool. So for those that don't know, in the digital era, it's the process used to make slide film. Transparency, 35 millimeter. Did I lose anybody? No. Hopefully they're still going. And other part of the job was prints. So you have a machine that prints. We did a lot of weddings. My job was to print the wedding. At the other end would come out pink gowns. And so you have a waste bucket and it says how much waste you have. If you have too much waste, your quote is trash and you get talked to. My mentor, my boss, John Kramer at the time, pulls me aside and says, here, do this test. And if you haven't seen a colorblind test, it looks sort of like a bunch of colored dots. I'd never seen it before. And he goes, what number do you see? I don't see any. Flips the page. What number do you see? I don't see any. There's a pattern here. And he goes, you're colorblind. You're officially off weddings. And now you're on the maintenance team.
Oh, man.
And so at that point, I knew there was like, oh, I got some physical shortcomings. I'm perfect according to my mom.
Yeah.
But here I go. Like, I got to figure this out. So what do you do? So you don't go that way. I'm not going to go on the color side, but I can definitely go on this side. And then shooting was more advantageous for what I was doing because you didn't need the color correction per se that you do with film, that you do today with digital. I'd almost say that if I had to start in the digital era, I would have failed as a photographer because at the beginning you had to do all your own color corrections and I could just see my files going across the art director desk at the magazines and like, what's up with this guy? Everything's pink. Like, yeah. And you would stop right there.
The only gig you'd be hired for would be Barbie.
Yeah, true. Yeah. Or Messi.
Yeah.
Doing work for Messi, but yeah.
I love this story because you go on to become, arguably the world's most famous snowboard photographer. Like you are known as the guy behind the lens, and to know that you were sent behind the camera because it was like on the outside developing this film that you found, like, I can't see what they need me to see, but I can capture like these images. And I also think it makes you such a joy punk because, in the beginning too, you clipping photos, like you weren't really getting paid, right? I mean, it was just fun. It was just pure joy.
Yeah. At the beginning, there was no magazines. We're talking, 85-ish is sort of when I started. Let's say 72 was maybe when snowboarding started. And then, the manufacturers, Jake Burt and Tom Sims, really started to get their you get there, let's say business game on, it started to be more mainstream. By 85, there was an industry, but there was no magazine. So I think even on the entrepreneurial journey, probably one of the first entrepreneurial outbound things I did was just starting magazines. So you start with a zine, which is probably an Instagram feed today. And then that kind of parlays into, traveling across New England at the time to shoot events where all the snowboarders would gather. So the business model there was leave Syracuse, New York on a Friday, drive 6 hours to New Hampshire, stay at my friend's place, and then shoot the snowboarding event on Saturday, and then Sunday sell prints to their moms. So they would all, line up, get $30 print, and that would be your gas money. So it was kind of a break-even deal as a business, but it got me there and got me in front of all the right people.
Did you have an idea when the scene was starting or when you were in there, like, were you fueled? Was it just pure passion? Like, I just love the sport. Or did you also have a sense of like, hey, there's something happening here? Did you have any idea that you were on like the beginning wave of history, really?
It's probably two-part, yes and yes. I mean, I think as a young kid, you wanted to grow up and not be a baseball player or firefighter. It wanted to be Tony Hawk. And at that time, skateboarding was coming into the limelight and growing. And as a kid looking at a magazine, it looked bigger than anything I'd seen. Baseball, NFL, it probably was bigger than NFL at the time. And so you wanted it to grow and be that big. And you saw I wasn't as going to be Tony Hawk. And snowboarding was the next best thing. And it was infant. And so I felt like it was the early days. As skateboarding had its early days, snowboarding was having its early days. And I recognized that, I guess, entrepreneurially, that this was going to go. And to be the best, in this instance, as a shooter, there was nothing but upside. Finally got halfway there. Cool. But to get all the way there would be awesome.
You had mentioned, you were from Syracuse, New York, and definitely you being someone that, I've known for decades here in Oregon, you have a real like old school East Coast in lots of ways attitude. You're very loyal. Like, I'm going to do the right thing. And this is how it goes, but in the loveliest of ways. 'Cause you also are always, you're very open-minded, always changing, very current, but like at your core, your stability. We always call you like our super dad sometimes, because it's like, we know you've got, our back. It's just incredibly loyal. Where does that come from? And what does loyalty mean to you?
Wow. Thank you. What does loyalty mean to me? And does the East Coast DNA have anything to do with it? Maybe. I hadn't really thought about it.
I mean, I always think that like Syracuse, like the working, the blue collar working class, like attitude.
Credit to my dad, whose birthday was just the other day. So rest in power, Dad, and appreciate all the, the silent, quiet life lessons that he gave me. But again, the one simple one is if you're at work on time, you're 15 minutes late. I mean, it's old school, but it definitely was pounded into my head. And I had the opportunity and pleasure and gift of being able to go to my dad's place of employment at Bristol Myers in Syracuse, New York, in between semesters in college. And it was at that time I knew he really loved us because that job sucked. There's a lot of freakazoids in there. And it just was something to motivate you to go, man, this is where I'm going to end up if I don't get my ass in gear and make something of myself. And, the other part of the East Coast DNA is like, getting to Oregon. And I think I got here in 1990 and it was kind of a difficult transition. It's very laid back here. I'd spent time before I got here down in California, LA, and there's definitely the name dropping thing that we all kind of observe and make fun of. In Syracuse, it's like the other part of it is like there's sort of this nicknaming. So it's like, I'll do it to you right now. It's like, nice glasses. Right? And it's like, here, is being very disrespectful and I'm a hard person to deal with, blah, blah, blah. But what I'm really trying to do is find a spot for us to connect and have commonality and be able to just be real with each other as quick as I possibly can.
A little flip the shit, you catch it, toss it back.
Yeah. And then once you kind of get there, you're friends forever. And it's real and you can just go to that person with anything. But it doesn't always look politically correct in today's world. Yeah.
And you run, a really big agency. You've had so many of the, top designers and marketing, branding folks, thinkers, go through Nemo, or that you've brought up and trained or still there. And how, have you struggled with, the 15 minutes you're late and then you're here with this like West Coast laid back lifestyle?
I noticed in snowboarding too, is like East Coast DNA ran the whole West Coast action sports because they have this work ethic of get it done, drop the mic. Like that's just the way you grow up.
Yeah.
And so you don't want to let anybody down or disappoint anybody, especially family and friends. And so you will, if you promise something, you better deliver. Here on the West Coast, it's a little more diluted, I guess. And so, yeah, I got to go surfing today. It's like, what? It's a work day. That's for the weekend, right? Even when I started snowboarding, I thought it was only on the weekends. I didn't think you could snowboard during the week. I was such an idiot. Because you're just so, and good thing, bad thing, right? You're just so ingrained into like, okay, work is the priority. I got to do it at work, or, for whatever reason, you won't be successful or be able to pay the rent.
So is that why you made snowboarding your work? So you could go snowboarding on the weekdays? Because otherwise it just wasn't an option.
If you like what you're doing every day, it's not really like work. It's such a cliche, but there's some truth to it.
Well, I've heard you say many times too, which has, I think, made you really fearless in business and really unattached, because I know you've had big accounts come and go, and that's your main role at Nemo is business development. But I think that hearing you say like, I don't know that I've ever been happier in those moments than I was living in my car and shooting. So like, I know I don't, it's not things that you're chasing. How does that come up for you? And like, what is that like when you find yourself chasing something that's not going to happen? Like, is that just what you tell yourself, or?
I like that story. I still like to be that guy every day I wake up, just living in my car. And if I have to go back to being that guy, now it's called van life and everybody's paying top dollar to do it. You guys are idiots. Like $500 car and call it good. And I can't wait to get back to be that guy. So as fast as I can blow up the agency, quicker I get back to that.
No, but I think that's probably what makes your work so good, is that you're making great work. You're not like twisting it, right? Like hoping to please. You're like, at the end of the day.
Yeah, that brings up so many things for me. Again, there's like, I think a lot of business owners are just afraid of their client and repercussions of basically being fired. I haven't had that. I mean, you have it and you don't want to let people down and you don't want to have to let people go because, they've got families and you've made a promise to them to, take care of that family along with yourself. And so, but I don't get too attached to it because one door closes, another one opens, and it's going to be better. And I've made some, decisions I'm proud of, not bragging or anything. But again, when we've had clients that haven't been reasonable, especially with the relationship with you as a female leader, an entrepreneur, it's like, the client wasn't, or I'm trying to be nice about it, male chauvinist pig.
Yeah.
And, it was $1 million deal and I just fired the guy.
Yeah.
It's not going to be tolerated because I could see long-term for the Nemo brand that we folded to this bad dude, and that's not going to attract the best talent in the city, in this country, in the world, period. And so it hurts in the moment, but long-term, I think it still generated us more than the $1 million I walked away from. Didn't feel like that in the moment. And it's hard to get everybody to come along, but it wasn't an option. It was necessary.
Those moments are hard, but I'm guessing that for even your clients that are really loyal and that you have great partnerships with, they've got to appreciate that they can trust you're going to tell the truth, right? You're not afraid. And I think that like the more successful, we get as people, or the more successful a brand gets, the harder it is to have someone just tell you the truth.
It's pretty easy, right? Mark Twain said it. Tell the truth, you know what you're going to say next, right? Like, and I think, I'm partners with Mark Lumen and Jeff Bartell, and we all emulate that when we're in front of clients. Nobody should ever have to lie, and nobody should ever overpromise something that we can't deliver. And if you can't, come up with a solution, be proactive, and say, hey, we can't, but this agency can, or this individual can help, to ensure that the client gets what they need. So it really isn't that hard. We know we get a lot of feedback from our clients that they like working with us.
Yeah.
And so it isn't even, they're just saying it in, a Q&A. It's like their actions actually by staying with us for 7-8 years in the agency business is unheard of. Well, I mean, 18 months is the turnaround with an agency to have these long-term relationships. And again, when you look at it, that's biz dev, that new business you don't have to go chase, pay for, and then kind of figure out in your bottom line. Like it just continues to come. So, thankfully we've been able to pick good clients, or they pick us, and then the relationship works. I like how Jeff says it. He goes, I just want to do cool work for cool people. As simple as biz dev's manifesto is, go get that. Okay.
I love that. Really keeping it simple. I also, I have a unique relationship with you in that I got the honor of taking over your position as the learning chair for a local organization here, Entrepreneurs Organization. It's a global organization, and you were the learning chair for their Portland chapter. And then I stepped in behind you. And generally in that position, you just kind of get thrown in. You're like a new person, good luck. Maybe the other person, will give you some notes. And you just had me shadow you for a year. It was the first time that I've had a lot of mentors in the past, but no one that really just kept it so simple. Like you're just like, I'm just going to explain to you all the things I'm doing. You just show up, and you gave me a lot of information in the background, and it was so relaxed. It was so easy. It was just in the flow that it appeared to me like this isn't much work for him. And the head start it gave me has really changed the way that like I've trained. It changed the way that I mentored the person that came under me. And I imagine, the decades in the agency industry, you have mentored a lot of folks through this business. And what is your philosophy? This is just me looking from the outside in, but I'm wondering, when you're mentoring someone, what are you thinking? What do you think the objective is? What does great mentorship mean to you?
Kind of goes back to a little action sports DNA, shut up and put up. In that I can't tell you how to do it. You have to kind of want to come to it on your own and with your own perspective on it, because what I have may be not right for what's going on for you and or for the industry, and something's changed. And so stay curious and really be cheering for that individual, because I think everybody has the potential to reach, their optimum goals. It's just you want to give them the runway and just be, I guess, like a safety net just in case they need a little help. Because none of it's that hard. I look at somebody that's a mathematician or scientist or doctor or something, like that seems hard. And what we're doing, no disrespect to either one of us, it's like, oh, okay. I have accountants that can't do creative. That's cool, but it seems easy. Maybe it's not. I probably should shut up. It's super hard. I think really it just boils down to, for me anyway, life learning is through the experience of actually doing it. To read about it, it's not really going to help me much. And just doing it and just having somebody kind of go, oh, maybe it's part too way my dad would help with the car. Like I'd have to get under and change the oil, and he wouldn't help. It's like, here's the tool, figure it out, put it back in the right spot when you're done. And it's like, but he was there coaching you, but it wasn't like, you got your hands dirty. So I love these new YouTube videos where they show you how to do it step by step. Makes life so easy.
Yeah. I just fixed my pool pump with one of those YouTube videos. It was probably the most empowering moment of my month. It's like, damn. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's totally doable. And in our case too, again, it's like, and congratulations to you too, taking taking that organization and growing it. I think we were at 60 when I was doing it, and then it went to about 120 after you got done doing it. So you did something right.
Well, I think I was just following your momentum.
Oh, you're so kind.
Thank you. Speaking of mentorship, I'm so thankful for the mentorship I received from you. Sometimes mentorship's hard because it also means saying goodbye. And you and I've both had the opportunity and privilege of watching many of our former teammates go out and start up agencies of their own. What's your philosophy around this? What's your thinking, and how's that evolved over time?
Oh, your first thing to do is think you own everybody and that they owe you something. But again, I think what I've learned is servant leadership, and I work for them. And part of that may be that they will be able to live without regret and try to do their own agency. And so the first person to say, I will invest in you. I will give you opportunity. Here's a desk, and here's the playbook, the gesture. Here's the playbook. Good luck. And see how it goes. And so over the years, I've had some groups that come out and it's like, hey, they've got 3 creative directors and nobody on biz dev, and I'll give it a year and a half before they start arguing and it's over. And others, it's like, one of our other neighbors here, Manu, was one of those guys. He says, hey, he's working for me. I want to start my own deal. Let me help you. And he got up to, I think, 3 people at our shop, and he does plus QA, and his business is bigger than mine. And I don't feel slighted. I don't feel anything but stoked for him that he was able to make his vision and dream and passion for entrepreneurship come to fruition. The other part of it, selfishly, is it's business development. Again, I say, like, I've had good talent leave and go brand side. And where do they come back? To people that they know. And so they'll bring us in to help them on their bigger vision because they know us, we're a known quantity. And there's some big business there. One of my guys left, he ended up at Mattel, and, $1.5 million later, it was good business development. So we'll take care of him and make sure that he's successful in anything that he does.
That's so interesting. I think that one of the things that for me when I left Hassan Company is that the way that I left, I worked really hard on making sure that I kept a really good relationship with Mike. And there was a certain point when the business took off that I called him and I was like, I hope that every bit of success that I've had, that you see that and that's a direct product of like what you've given to me. Like there is no me without you. And feeling really grateful, feeling really humble for that. And then what I realized over the years as we were friends, it's like there's no one better also to go into business with. It's like your kids, you train them, how they think, there's trust there. Like it wasn't something I was interested in, is like going and running the housing company. But, I try to keep that in mind as we have people that go and start out, is like, I hope that again, we come back and then they'll come back and they'll understand me better because they've done it. And I understand what they're going through. And then it's a kind of a really cool new relationship too that's possible in the future.
Yeah, they walk in your shoes. They have a better appreciation and what it really takes.
Yeah.
And those are the best conversations and thank yous that I get of when they've actually taken that risk and moved out and tried to go out on their own.
Yeah. Like, oh, it was actually a lot harder than I thought.
And some of the finer things that you do as a leader, it just goes over your head when you're, say, just an employee, but they can actually reflect back and say, oh, that was pretty big deal when you let that male chauvinist pig go, wasn't it?
Yeah. Like now that I pay the bills.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. And too, I love what you're saying just about gratitude, because the longer I have those folks that have been with me and have trusted me with their business, and we've built good mutual relationships together where both of our successes come up together. We've done that together. And there's just, it gets more meaningful, and I feel more grateful every single year that goes by. It's just incredible. It's the best gift that there is, I think, as a business owner.
It's easier to use positive energy as opposed to negative. I wish them to fail. It's like, here, let's let them succeed, because it forces you to have to get your game on too.
Yeah.
So you actually grow with their growth.
Yeah. Play a beautiful game. Someone good to compete with.
Yeah.
I imagine with, everything that you're saying about mentorship, I'm also as the lens of a parent thinking, that's a lovely way to parent too. Is this like, okay, here you go. You're going to do it your own way. I'll explain to you what it is. I'll be here to coach, but I'm going to give you some space. What now when you're looking at that kid developing film that, can't see white from yellow from pink? What advice would you have to yourself, now? Did you change anything?
I feel pretty lucky. I've been pretty good to myself. As far as, I hear some people really beating themselves up and their insecurities kind of take over. But I was able to kind of not let that be just leading my decision making. I think if anything, it was just, there's a price to pay for everything, I guess. And some of it's relationships. And sometimes when you're in the mode of like, I'm going to be the world's best snowboard photographer, you forget that there's other people in your relationships that fall in the wake from family and friends. And so I wish I hadn't made some of those sacrifices. It almost feels like a sacrifice. You kind of outgrew them, or you just didn't feed those relationships enough that they withered and went past you. And so they're not there. So if I could have done that better, I sure wish I had.
That's a really lovely reminder. I mean, I think we all get to a point in success and you just really realize there's really not anything more than relationships. I think that's the real measure of our success, right?
Yeah, it's harder to do than you think. You can't just boss them around and be my friend. Like, it doesn't work like that.
Show up and be the friend. Yeah. Kind of going back to your get it done or shut up. What'd you say?
Shut up and put up.
Yeah, you shut up and put up. When the pandemic first hit, we were talking every day. We were a part of a small group of entrepreneurs who are like, hey, let's just do a checkup every morning. Let's just see how you're doing. And that was, I thank you so much. I get the chills just thinking about that, because we were all of us leaders on that call were supporting a lot of people at that time. And there was a lot of uncertainty. So you were like part of my superhero team that I could go to and check in with. And one of the things that you quickly started doing was you took action. Like, of course, you're an extreme sports guy, and the graffiti on the streets was driving you nuts. So you started waking up early and covering graffiti on your way into work. And what I hadn't really realized until some months in is that you weren't like just doing it a little, like when you felt like it. You were doing it every fucking day for a few hours, at least. And going into your empty shop and making sure that like it was open, and between there and there that you were going to be covering the graffiti. What compelled you to do that? What was that like in the beginning? And this is years after, and I believe you're still doing it.
I think we need to bring in a shrink. Let's make the call a friend. Poof. Where do we begin? That's been a 3-year adventure. I call it Buff Rogers. And what Buff represents is all the people in this community that really want it to be a safe place to live.
Yeah.
And it's not just me, but it's the building owner. It's the guys that are actually paid by the city to do the work, because it's not that sexy at the end of the day. It's not like everybody's going to go, wow, you saved the city. But it's one of those ingredients that just adds to all the downfall that we've been experiencing as a city.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you hear the news, you hear LA and San Francisco are worse. I'm like, geez. And I just got back from Boston. I'm like, same size city. Why can't we be this nice? Damn. So yeah, we could unravel a whole bunch of topics here. But on the Buff Rogers adventure, it's like, it's funny. It's like, what can I control today? And what I can do. And again, what can you give back without asking for anything in return? And it's time. We had lots of time during the pandemic. And so did a lot of other people. We'll call them vandals.
Yeah.
And you know, and for clarity for your audience too, on what graffiti means in this context of this conversation, we see street art with beautiful, you know, big murals, and people are supportive of that. And there's definitely groups that organize putting the murals up. Then there's writers, and those are the folks, graffiti writers. And what they end up doing is, you know, the good letters, and they put their pieces, or the wild style pieces, you know, throws, tags, and little marker and sticker guys, right? And so then there's this other class, and I think they're probably the lowest on the food chain in this city. I just call them vandals. You know, they're just taggers. Basically, you know, I was talking to my son the other day, and he goes, they're flailing for validation.
Yeah.
And acknowledgement. It's like they're the Where's Waldo type person that just needs to be seen. And so with their issues, they decide to take the spray can, which can be an instrument of art. And we've seen those and appreciated them, and becomes a weapon of frustration upon an innocent building or
mural.
Murals too. You've seen that yourself. Yeah. And just this is, oh gosh, you know, trying to be nice about them, but it just can't. Like, they're just lower than low. I mean, even, you know, the folks on the street don't have anything nice to say about them. They basically give them, you know, it's hard enough being on the street. And when these guys come up and spray paint your tent and kick over your, you know, your worldly belongings and call you names and threaten to stab you in the neck. And these are some good people.
Yeah.
And within that group, there's a whole bunch of separate type of personalities too. I mean, there's a whole crew out of, let's call it a local high school. They're just, you know, lost, trying to find themselves and looking for some kind of masculine outlet to join. And it's short of joining a gang, basically, but they're definitely out there. And the pandemic allowed everybody to, let's call it, you know, supersize what they were doing, because they were able to take the time to go into the store and rack paint, which means steel paint, and then go from, let's call it 2 foot by 3 foot signatures to full on pieces on wherever they damn well feel like it. And I've been at it for 3 years. There's been 8 days where there hasn't been any new graffiti overnight. I've probably take down 8,000 to 10,000 pieces a year. And on the average, I'm spraying 4 acres of paint just to keep up on just our neighborhood, Buckman.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
And only a small section of the city. And, you know, what's weird is what happens is when buffers push, there's an evolution, just like with the COVID virus. It evolves, it changes, and they've changed. And I'm sure you've all driven down 205, 405, 84. And what they're doing now is evolving, going on top of buildings, climbing up on highway signs, hitting all the retaining walls along the freeway, and it's getting more dangerous. And so it's gotten to a point in Seattle where, geez, a month ago, there's a 14-year-old kid climbed up on the monorail and got hit and killed. It's not pretty. So that's where they're going. And imagine for our town, we will see the news at some point where one of these guys falls. They call them heaven spots. They're going to fall onto the freeway and get worked and make the news. And so Buff wakes up every day and pushes. And so what it ends up doing when you push is it gets building owners to want to put murals up. And I think if you see over here at Wolfpack, they put up a mural. it definitely makes the graffiti come down. The tagging, I won't even call it graffiti, just the tagging goes down because there is a little bit of respect for that. And then, we're waiting, I guess, for the city officials to kind of make it a priority. And so there's just not enough manpower within the city to present cases to the DA to get convictions. And so, that's a whole thing to unravel there. But for this story, there's a daily occurrence every single day that's happening. If you want to come out, I'd take them out.
I've been out with you on these buff run, get the bucket bike. The living room's got a bucket bike, drove out, we can put paint in there. It's fun. But, I've done that once with you in 3 years. You've done this every day for 3 years. And I just think only someone that is attracted to extreme sports, and it makes perfect sense to me. And I know you also roll with the crew sometimes. You guys will repair because vandals are like taking off roofs of businesses. And so you'll have a couple of people with you maybe to help tie things down. Do you frequently get people that want to help you or join, or are you alone the majority of time in this work?
It's growing just through the underground of it all. Because again, you keep quiet about it. Just don't want to make too much noise, but at the same time, you want to attract the right people, and the right people are coming in. And so there's a group of Buff Roger type folks. And so there's like 5 people that buff. And so we share notes, talk about who's doing what, share paint and resources, back up people on vacations to make sure that areas are covered. And it's funny because on the buff run, it's more like if you've ever taken a fishing guided tour out at the coast, like I know where the fish are. I know where the tags are going to be. Jump in the boat. We're going to go out and get it. And ironically, what's I find interesting is it's very high-end jobs. We've got CEOs, VPs, marketing directors, just top-end people wanting to go and do it. They'll actually get up, come out, and do it. And so people in my shop look at me and like, he's making a mess in the front corner. What's up? I haven't seen them come out yet. Hopefully they will come out and experience it and then be able to contribute. And then hopefully they will find their own way to contribute to the recovery of Portland, because I think that's why we're all doing it. And we all want to see a better city. We've all seen a better city. And that's why this all exists in the first place, is that we've made the commitment to this city. It's awesome. Yeah. We're just having a little bit of a struggle rate. It's a good time to invest, right? It's like buy low, sell high. Yeah, we just got to buy low right now.
If you apply real estate thinking to what's going on with the city and sentiment and how people feel, it feels like a really good time to get in on the city, because they've got these stories, about where the city is going that I don't think are true. I've seen so much improvement. And this, we forget, we leave this area and, you go to another city and you're like, oh yeah, but they have no fresh water. They have no mountain. They don't have all these incredible people that our city is filled with, like there's a little tension here. I mean, I think it goes back to loyalty and, you've also, I think you've been married close to 30 years. Is that correct? And like, it's like a marriage, like fidelity to a place, fidelity to people, I think teaches us about love, period.
Seems simple enough, right? But we've seen some of our friends leave.
Yeah.
The second it got hot, they're out of here.
Yeah.
And we've all seen Portland. I don't know, I'm old enough to see Portland in the 90s before the Pearl District.
Yeah, right.
It wasn't glowing.
Yeah, right.
Nirvana's playing. It wasn't glowing here. But I thought it was exciting. Yeah. I didn't see any of that others had seen, but I fell in love with it anyway. Like I say, the bones are still here. The mountains, the ocean, got great food, good people.
Okay, you're a branding specialist. So let's just say our city needs a little rebranding. If Nemo got that job, if I called you up, I was like, Trevor, we need Nemo to rebrand Portland. What would your pitch be? I'm really putting you on the spot.
Well, that won't be very cheap. I could come up with the idea in 2 minutes, but it's going to be very expensive. God, what a great opportunity that would be because it's all here. It's simple, right? It's super easy.
Mm-hmm.
But again, what I look at it too is just there's pieces of the city I think that are great, and we can elaborate on them. Sustainability. We've got all the ingredients, play it up. Diversity. I think it can be better, but I think we're open to wanting it to be better. I've heard both sides of it where not diverse enough, and then I see people coming in as leaders and trying to bring it with them. So I think we need those senior leaders in those diversity groups to come in, set up camp, and attract others like themselves to be incorporated into this community. So we've got a little work there, but I think we can do better. Innovation, just the idea of creativity. When I look at even with the Pearl District in any community, really, you go in and let the artists set it up, and then let's call the money people come in behind. So creatives are really good at setting the landscape, and they're not afraid, and they're used to things being a little rough. And then when the big buildings go in, it's changed. It moves, it changes. But let's look at those creative people and see how they can help, because there's a lot of them here, from our culinary to just creatives to artisans to, you name it, they're here. Shoemakers. There's a lot of good talent here. What would they say? What would they do? I'd love to get them in a room as we are here today and just pick their brain. And then natural beauty. I would definitely play up. That's something we have that we have over spades. I was in Boston, as I said, last week, and it's nice, but they got the ocean. It's cool, but it just isn't the same. In October, maybe when the leaves peep, it's great. You get those super hot summers, they get the super brutal winters, and we don't get all that. So if you move here, come in August, it's great, but don't move here in January. Just saying.
I have never flown into Boston and cried, but I have done that flying into Portland. You get Mount Hood and the sun's just right, and you just the tears start falling. It's beautiful.
It's our beacon, right? And I know you guys have grown up here in Oregon. You're pretty fortunate. And I think we got something special.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's as rough as everybody's saying. Come on in.
Come on in.
It's not that bad. We're getting better.
We've been friends for a really long time. So I know, the realtor hustle. You've seen me. And what do you notice about realtor branding? Are there things that you think that folks could be doing better? Is there anything you wish that folks had stopped doing?
Realtor branding. When you say it, the first thing I pop up is the sign in the front yard. And then fortunately or unfortunately, there is a stigma. Like a 6-pack is a drink, right? You know what it looks like. And so when you see the street sign, those real estate signs, it's like, oh, there it is. It's whatever that is, 2x2.
Yeah.
And so, and that wooden little post, it's it doesn't have to have anything else on it. Just that physical ID says this house is for sale. So when I've seen some of your competitors experimenting with that figure and it doesn't work, you just drive by it. And then the other one is the experiment. It gets too much like a garage sale sign. If you don't do the full meal deal, I've seen some little wire deals that some realtors have put out, and it just doesn't catch you to go, oh, that's for sale. It just says, oh, yard sale or estate sale. So there's this physical part of what the branding is for a real estate company that some of it's tried and true, and I don't know if it's going to ever change or should change. And just it is what it is. It's work. It ain't broke.
Keep it simple.
And the other one is, it's interesting too, is just the, there's some that have, different names. Some is just some guy's name. If I don't know who that guy is, I don't know who he is. Do I trust him? Somebody does. He's got a business. He must be the goods. And there's some that have funny spellings. And so if you're, again, from a different culture, wouldn't translate. And so the other one is, I've seen one black in their logo or in their branding. And that was a miss. You're driving by at night. It doesn't pounce off the street. When you see it, it just sort of gets muddy. So don't use black.
Our old brand says, I don't know if you remember this, but it was brown and gray. And it literally was the colors of the average winter day in Oregon. And you drive by and be like, I can't see it.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
oh, I love to wear those colors. I want to live in those colors, but but your color, they actually have to do something. They have a job to do,
Mhm.
and that is to be easily read and to be seen. So we had to move away from that. That was like ding ding, branding 101.
Live and learn.
Yeah,
No
live
wrong
and learn.
answers.
Yeah, I also liked the smaller font. And now that I'm older and have to wear these reading glasses all the
Exactly.
time,
Yep.
and I remember older agents being like, the font's too small, I can't read it. I'm like,
Yep.
what?
Yeah. That's just Steve Jobs 101, right? Like,
Yeah.
make big fonts because few letters.
Mm-hmm.
The thing I was looking at too is just QR codes. It seems like younger folks, it's like you get up to the sign, like boom, you want it in your phone.
Yeah.
I see some that, put the flyer out front with the price or whatever, and that's nice, right away if you're in the ballpark or not. Yeah, those are the quick hits.
It's just the simple stuff. I think well, thank you for that, because it's interesting to talk to someone. One, you're a branding professional, and two, you're outside of the industry, because we get so in our head about all the complicated things that we need. And so I appreciate the reminder, like, easy sign, easy to read. Give me the information. Boom, job done.
Simple. And it's trust too. I think it's a big investment for a lot of people, and they got to really trust your brand and your agents.
Mm-hmm.
And so how are you going to signify that through communications, social feeds, YouTubes, all those good things that are pretty important when they actually finally get in and start doing the homework.
Yeah. Your building, you've got a huge commercial building. It's so cool. The mural is amazing, right in the heart of Central East Side on Belmont.
Mm-hmm.
And as a business owner, how has owning your space changed how you look at the business or at your portfolio?
How does owning the business affect a Nemo Design, one of my businesses, and just probably my portfolio of revenue in general?
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting to get consulted against buying a building because it becomes a distraction to running your core business. It's one school of thought in business and entrepreneurship. The other side of this equation for me is like, it's also a business and it can generate revenue and stability for the company. And even if you outgrow it, you can still lease it to another party and be able to generate revenue from it. Rockefellers, all those folks, a lot of their nest egg is real estate. Mm-hmm. And even through the pandemic, real estate, even my commercial building, held steady, which I was completely ready to take the hit. But hey, it didn't go that way. So I'll take the upside on that one.
Yeah.
And I think it's just I have a different type of building and zoning, et cetera. Not one of those tall bank buildings. So lucky me. Mm-hmm. And again, Mark Twain, real estate, they don't build it anymore.
Yeah.
Especially in a city and it is what it is. And so we got our spot. And so what I like for me personally with the business is if the agency fails, I still have some revenue with the building. Mm-hmm. And I've been able to, again, make that bottom line expense in the P&L for the agency flat. So I choose to do that. It isn't smart business. I can definitely, let's say, push that, etc. But, I've heard some crazy stories about folks and some of their landlords and how, let's say, unhelpful they were during the pandemic.
Yeah.
At the same time, too, I've heard some great stories of, landlords being very cooperative with people during their pandemic. And so I didn't have to deal with any of that craziness. And so our price tag doesn't keep going up on our bottom line. So that should flow to the bottom and be shared with the employees and staff. So,
I mean, I know for me, it just gives me a certain amount of, I can make decisions again with like little fear, because it's like, hey, like I'm not worried about trying to keep up with expenses because I fixed my expenses, with owning the building. Like I'm keeping them low. And right now with the city on sale, it's a hell of a lot cheaper to buy something than go out and lease it. So that's interesting because I think there's some opportunity for businesses. And I just think about the number one probably success story of owning your real estate and that ensuring the longevity of your business is probably Powell's Books. There is no way they could afford to keep their doors open, and especially all of they're Portland's umbrella. They've got homeless people coming in and out of there. I mean, they have to do a lot of things besides sell books. And that's where every president's going to go. It's where every governor is going to go and stop by and say hi. Their margin is razor thin. And if they had a landlord that kept raising the rent or had raised the rent at all, or they had met Amazon with raising rent, like they'd be gone. So, it's in a way, it's this way of making sure that you've got, I think, some legacy built in.
I also think it's part of our brand, just having a physical space. Definitely in this industry, it's easy to go remote and, have talent all over the world. And there's definitely a business opportunity and strategy that can be done that way. For us, it's still a place that people kind of come, aggregate. I think there's been millions of years around the fire sharing stories. I don't think it goes away over a 2-year pandemic. Like, people still want to gather and come together. I do think they want the flexibility of what remote working allows. And so at the same time, they still want to feel connected to something bigger than themselves. It's a bigger topic as well. But again, with everybody separating and going to their own silos, I think they all still want to come together. And at work is one of those places you've all opted in to want to work in this type of business with these type of people. And so it really becomes part of your fabric of who you are and how you identify. And so having a place to come, join and gather.
Yeah, powerful, isn't it? You've got kick-ass offices too. I mean, it's so fun. It's relaxed. I go in there and I just feel immediately at home. Probably going to pet a dog or two. I'm going to meet some really great folks, and you guys have your creative work up on the walls, and there's just a lot of space in there to jam and flex. So you've done a great job.
Oh, thanks. I felt that, the big ceilings help, and then just the idea of giving creatives enough elbow room to make a mess. I sell it as extra creativity, and clients need to pay more. But when you look at, I've been into Anomaly in New York City, and they just jam them in there. It's just 100 foot per person, and this is a silly story, but my uncle was a dairy farmer. You need an acre per cow in order for it to give milk and just be able to exist. And creatives are the same. They need to be nurtured, and that needs space. Flex and get all their stuff all over the place and leave their stuff up on the wall and have a space to, do a creative photo shoot or video thing. So we allow for that to happen in the space. And so, I could see a consultant come in, an operations minded person go, oh, you got too much real estate. It's like, well, do I?
Right. All the things you can't quantify. You're also going to freaking damn me at home because my creative husband's going to hear what you just said and be like, see, honey, I need my shit all over. It's part of the creative process.
Yes.
Yes. I love what you're saying about, in 2 years, it's not going to go away, that we want to come around the fire, right? And talk and join and be together. And you've also taken this with your nonprofit. It's the Y East Academy, correct? Tell us a little bit about that.
So I sit on the board of a nonprofit called Y East Academy. And what it is it's a boarding school for high schoolers that are interested in action sports. So again, it's my action sports DNA. I just want to give back. There's really no alumni to give for action sports per se, but my education was on the road as a shooter. And I learned so much about life and business and being on the road. And so how do you give back? And I've got the opportunity to work with Kevin English, Bobby Meeks, and those guys up at what used to be the Wendell's snowboard camp. And they've evolved, and they did it right during the pandemic. They just flipped a switch and became a nonprofit school. And, I'm scratching my head going, is this going to work? And it did. So they were able to get through all the COVID protocols to be able to house high school students and be able to take them out and keep them on their schedules. So again, on the skiing program, on the last Olympics, we had 4 medalists, and mountain biking is part of the program, skateboarding is part of the program, and snowboarding is part of the program. So I anticipate we'll probably see more top-end athletes come out of that school in the future.
That is super cool. It really reminds me, you've been a big supporter too of mine with my work, my former work with the Rock and Roll Camp for Girls. And as two people that were sort of given our entrepreneurial training through sports or through music, is just the opportunity to kind of flex who we were and take risks. And I mean, that's got to be the best training I've ever had for business. There was nothing in school that I was going to learn that came close to that. And I just wonder, the name of the podcast is Joypunk. You're punk. What does that mean to you? What does Joypunk mean to you?
Well, there's a few things that it makes me think of when you do it. Obviously, when we think of punk, we definitely think of this rebellious counterculture spirit, not being a nonconformist. And for me, a lot of that is action sports. And let's call it in a positive way. There's definitely some punk things that aren't so good, but we'll take the good stuff. And then joy, again, just the idea that Joypunk could be, again, someone who is a rebel with a smile. They fight for change with a hope in their heart and challenges the status quo and act out of joy and love.
I just realized when I asked you that question, your youngest kid is named Punk, and you've been calling Punk for years.
Yeah, Punk. Just like, you want kids to have a little bit of an attitude, but a little bit of strength and a little bit of courage. But yeah, Punk. I didn't even think of that. That's
so funny. It's that same East Coast, I'm going to flip this at you, and then I got your back forever.
Forever.
Well, Trevor, thanks for having my back, and thanks for being on the Joypunk podcast. I love you.
Congrats. Keep stoking people up.
I will. Thank you.
Peace.
Thanks again to Trevor Graves. Check out all the cool work he's a part of over at nemodesign.com. Next time, I'll be joined by the wise sage and astrologer Carol Ferris, a woman who helped plant the seed that set me on the path to creating a matchmaking contest that led to me meeting my husband. If you don't know her, I assure you you'll want to. Catch our conversation next time. Enjoy, Jenelle.